Thanks, Whoopi.
Hello, Governor.
Thanks.
So we've gotten to know each other here at
Yep.
ABC because we're both ABC political contributors. And before I got to know you personally, I remember this when this happened because you were the first mainstream politician to endorse President Trump. And I remember when you did it, I actually was still dating my husband. I went on a double date with 2 other people that work in Republican politics. And I said, this is the beginning of him getting really normalized because when Christie's endorsing him, this makes him a really mainstream candidate. And we actually cheersed. I was like, this may be the beginning of the end. You at the time said we are not electing an entertainer in chief and then seemed to have a quick change of heart. What made you make that decision?
He was going to win. I mean, like, you understand the practicality of politics. I'd been running against him and trying to beat him for however long, 6, 8 months, however long it was. And he came in second in Iowa by a whisker. He won New Hampshire 2-1, and then he won South Carolina by double digits. If it was any other candidate in any other year, the media would have all said, it's over. I mean, if you win in South Carolina, New Hampshire, and you barely lose in Iowa, you're going to be the nominee. And so my point was, all right, he's going to be the nominee. So let's get moving to try to get him to be better than he is. And that was the real reason I did it.
How's that working out?
Well, you know what, Joy? You don't know what would have happened if I hadn't, right? So you might have been even more sad than you are now. I mean, the fact is that, you know, I'd known him for a long time. Yeah. I felt like I had an ability to be able to talk to him in a way that others didn't. And I think there were a lot of things over the course of time that I got him to either start doing or stop doing that were helpful. But in the end, I was convinced at that point, and a lot of, as you know, a lot of other people in the party weren't, and felt like, oh no, this guy could beat him, or this guy, Marco could beat him, Ted can beat him, John can beat him. No, I mean, you could just tell. One anecdote real quickly, my wife was doing door-to-door for me in New Hampshire. She went to a Republican door and she introduced herself, said she was my wife, and the woman said, oh gosh, yeah, we love your husband. He's so smart and articulate and blunt, direct. I mean, we're voting for Trump, but we love your husband. and she's like, well, wait a second, if you love him, why are you voting for Trump? She goes, yeah, we don't need any more politicians. When you start to get that feeling, Megyn, and I felt it, I was like, you know what? We better get behind this guy or we're gonna lose in November, and we better make sure that we try to make him as the best he can possibly be. That's what motivated me.
You said he was exactly what the country needed then. Do you still feel the same way now?
Well, listen, I don't think anybody is, first of all, that's political hyperbole. That's what you say when you endorse somebody, right? You know, you try to be as positive as you can be. Listen, I've spoken many times about things that he's did in the campaign, and has done in the presidency that I don't agree with.
Like
oh, listen, there's plenty of things. The travel ban, the separation of families at the border. I don't agree with the wall. You know, and the shutdown too, which I just talked about recently. I mean, so there's plenty of things that he's done that if I were president, I would do significantly differently. But there are also things he's done that I think have been good. So, you know, what I try to do.
I'm curious, like what?
Okay, so.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mean to push it.
I understand. No, that's it. So. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to point out the good. Joy, you're doing great. You know, I believe that the tax cuts he's done are the right thing. I believe that deregulation in the main that he's done is the right thing. I like many, if not most, of the judges that he's put on the court. And I think he's given us a better trade deal with Mexico and Canada than we had before. And I think it's going to be good for our economy. Now, I would have gone about it differently than he did. I wouldn't have, you know, put tariffs on our friends. China, I'm okay with, because they're stealing from us blind all the time. But the folks, you know, that are our friends, I wouldn't have done it. But those are stylistic differences. In the end, it's a better deal now for us. In general, how do I feel about Russia?
Yeah,
Listen, I think Russia's an adversarial country. Putin is a dictator.
Are you comfortable with that relationship?
No.
Okay.
But you know, it's not the way I would handle it. I think you know that. It's not the way I would handle it. I would be.
But sometimes you have to put country before party, right?
I think you always have to put country before party, right? But part of putting country before party is that people in this country all have different opinions about what that means. Like, you know, somebody would say, well, I'm not going to be for Donald Trump because I'm putting country before party. Well, maybe I agree more with him than I agree with Hillary Clinton. And that was the truth. So, and that's the other thing about elections. Elections are binary choices. We don't get to vote for who we want to vote for. We get to vote for who's there. And so, you know, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were the two most unpopular general election candidates in the last 60 years. So a lot of people went in and voted the opposite.
But I have a I have a question that it just struck me in reading your book. You know, everyone knew about what was happening for you personally with Bridgegate.
Right.
You know, it was you've been friends with Trump for 16 years, and we understand that. And I'm just surprised that friendship survived the primaries, because in your book you say when you're going through Bridgegate, your son comes home from Princeton and says to you, "I've got to ask you something. I've got to look you in your eye and say, did you do it?"
Yep.
And it's, as a mom, it seemed to me that you looked at him and you write, "Of course not." And at that moment, you knew you had to speak out. And then you say later on, during the primary, Donald Trump says at a December 7th rally
In South Carolina.
the
I
George
remember.
Washington Bridge, he knew about it. They're closing up the largest bridge in the world. He knew about it. He knew about it, totally knew about it. And then you write, Donald's attacks were unfounded, and worse, he knew it. He had told me on so many occasions. He almost brought you down. This Bridgegate almost brought you down as governor.
Almost threw you off
He
the bridge.
lied about it.
Right.
And then you get on national television and stump for him.
Right.
How
Okay,
do you
so-
reconcile
all right.
that within
So-
yourself?
right. So that's all
because
right.
in my world, those are shots fired.
All right.
You call me a criminal,
Let
I'm
him
not
answer the
stumping.
question.
All right,
Let him
so-
answer the question.
All right. Yeah, those were shots fired.
Yeah.
And in your world, maybe when shots get fired, you have to go to, as they would say in the mafia, to the mattresses, and everybody just tries to kill everybody. In politics, shots are fired every day. And the people who fire a shot at you today are people that you have to work with tomorrow. And this is what confuses me at times. I'll get to a direct answer to this, but I think it's a bigger point, too. You know, Republicans and Democrats shoot at each other every day. They have different points of view, and they shoot at each other. And we say we want bipartisanship. Well, if you're going to be bipartisan, you got to be willing to take incoming shots and not want to kill the other person on the other side, but say, okay, that's what they think, that's what they do. Now let me see if I can figure out a way to work with them. In this instance, when that happened, what did I do? The day he did that in the afternoon, I was in Iowa. I got the reports about what he said. I went out that evening and I went after him hard, really hard. Harder than I'd ever gone after him in the campaign. What happened the next morning? The next morning, his campaign manager calls my campaign manager and says, yeah, Donald made a mistake. He should have never said that stuff. He knows it was wrong. He'd like a truce.
Why did he call you? Why did
Well,
he
hold
call
on,
you?
go, Abby. I'll get to that. So I said to my campaign.
Okay, it's only an hour show
I understand. I said to my campaign manager, if he wants a truce, he calls me.
Right.
So later that afternoon, he
did.
called me and he said, I was wrong. I was angry. And what was he angry about?
Yeah.
He was angry about the fact that I'd gotten the Manchester Union leader endorsement in New Hampshire. Right before that, he wanted it. I got it. He was pissed. And so off he went.
Well,
Now,
can I tell you, he's never given me or my family an apology for
Right.
anything. And for me, it wouldn't have
Who doesn't
been.
do that?
I mean, granted, I think what was said about my father was worse, but
It was. And by the way, but he did apologize to me. So when he apologizes to me and then never said that stuff again, you have a decision to make. Do you hold a grudge and say, he said it once, it makes him an awful person, I'm not going to deal with him? If we do that in politics with every person who goes over the line, we're going to be eating dinner alone,
But
man.
you have to
Okay,
become
so
a
wait,
surrogate.
we're just gonna take a break. We'll be back with more with Christie.
Coming